can I dunk with a backpack on and my laptop in it without breaking myself or the laptop?
Yeah, that could be a very expensive mistake. I think we should make it, that's the focus. For most people, we're trying to get to where you can dunk with a backpack on.
Alrighty.
That's clearly how it's trying.
Welcome back to another episode of Past Your Prime. Today's podcast is for the athlete who is tired of spending more time warming up than actually playing. I'm Alex Keicher, pro volleyball player, dad, and a guy who has officially realized that my body doesn't just turn on anymore. If I try to jump at 100% without a proper warm-up, I can literally hear my tendons asking for a lawyer. They're going to sue me. My tendons are going to sue me. Joining me is my co-host Craig Smith, physical therapist, and the guy who convinced me that static stretching before a match is like trying to start a car in the winter by pulling on the bumper. Never works.
It never works.
Have you ever tried pulling on your bumper in the winter to start your car?
No, the only time I can remember doing something similar was when I had a student. We drove through water that we shouldn't have driven through, trying to get to the old place that was totally flooded, and it ripped off the bumper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be smoke from the engine, but...
I told them to keep it floored. I told them that water cannot get in, so you have to keep the gas down the whole time.
Yeah.
It wasn't very professional.
Today, we're talking about the warm-up. Exactly how to wake up your nervous system, protect your joints, find your snap so you can go from the office chair to the court without breaking something. Today, we'll break this down into a few key pieces. So why the transition from sitting all day to performing feels so bad, as it does for me most times. Why most warm-ups don't work, especially the stretching stuff we all grew up doing. I know Craig, big lover of the stretching. How to use your warm-up as a diagnostic tool instead of just a routine. How long to warm up, and when 5 minutes is good enough. Rarely is, but we'll try and make that work. Why some warm-ups actually make things worse. What's missing from activation and how to actually clean up movement. And finally, what a 5-minute professional warm-up actually looks like. All right, let's dive in. The quote-unquote gold standard, which is the ramp protocol.
The ramp protocol, which I'll just read it. So raise heart rate and body temp.
Okay, that's what we're raising.
Blood flow.
Not your hands.
Not
raising up North Carolina like Petey Pablo.
Who's Petey Pablo?
Oh. Go on and raise up. Take your shirt off.
Did you
run your hips? Spin it like a helicopter.
There, you knew that there was no way I was going to know that.
Yeah. That's why I threw it in there. We're gonna get trademarked for that one.
Yeah. Activate. So you turn on the key muscles, mobilize, move joints through full range of motion, so an active mobility component, and then potentiate, wake up fast twitch fibers, explosive movements.
I like all of those. I feel like I use them interchangeably, not necessarily all four, but maybe like a tiny piece of each of those four. I feel like today's episode came from just my warm-up yesterday, which went from typically taking 45 minutes to be able to dunk a basketball into about 20 minutes yesterday, even while I am self-proclaimed over what weight I want to be and wasn't really feeling it yesterday. But even with all of that, I was able to pretty quickly wake up my nervous system and throw down a dunk.
Warm-up is one of the more confusing ones, in my opinion, because there's such a large difference in how the body will feel between different people. Most people feel that the warm-up is a waste of time. You're not actually working on the things that will make your body physically perform better.
20 years ago, the warm-up was, in fact, a waste of time.
Well, you've shared that story. Tell me, you were dunking the basketball with a book bag on.
So I could just walk from the classroom into any basketball hoop and dunk it with two hands.
And you were, my picture of you is you had long hair and sandals on.
For a short period in college, yes.
Long hair and sandals, was that accurate?
I could probably dunk in sandals my first couple of years of college.
Were they the slip-on ones?
I'm trying to think of what shoes I would have worn.
Were you like gripping it with your toes?
Like chanclas, good old chanclas.
Also don't know what that is.
Okay, I don't know exactly what that is either, but I'm pretty sure it's Spanish for flip-flops.
There is a huge change that happens with aging though, right? That component of it is pretty remarkable.
I've certainly noticed it. I don't know what the biological process is, but I just feel stiffer. Yeah, it just takes me aside from yesterday, quite a bit longer to warm up. There might have been some pre-workout involved yesterday that may have had an influence on how much quicker I was able to warm up.
And pre-workout for people at home, it's not meth. It is close to it, though. It's meant to just get you rearing to go.
Yeah.
Heavy caffeine, sugar.
200 milligrams of caffeine. I know that's the dose in mine particularly.
Lots of times there's also some type of like a nitrous.
Yeah. Nitrous, yeah.
You just hit the button.
Just juice my engine up.
You get what's it, nitric oxide?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Beta-alanine is usually in a lot of them. That gives you that tingly feeling, which I definitely had.
So you get the pump and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But with aging specifically, I noticed the difference after 30. Other people will say they notice it maybe later, maybe after 40. But that's really today's is more focused on people who are not able to walk in with a book bag. Like if you're rocking a book bag, which I actually am still rocking a book bag, a Jansport that I took from my wife. If we're rocking a backpack going to the gym, this may not be your episode. It'll be more for those individuals coming in with a briefcase.
Because I just switched over from a briefcase to a backpack as well.
I like having the backpack actually.
Backpack with a laptop in it. Can I dunk with a backpack on and my laptop in it without breaking myself or the laptop?
Yeah, that could be a very expensive mistake. I think we should make it. That's the focus. For most people, we're trying to get to where you can dunk with a backpack on.
Alrighty.
That's clearly not the focus. Yeah. The idea to me is that the purpose of the warm up dramatically changes when you can't handle going right into the activity and it's an activity that you want to be able to do. And that's a huge transition point. What I think happens is individuals will feel that they're wasting their time on the warm up. I'm not sure if it's a carryover from an old mindset, right? Like when you were younger, it seemed like a waste of time, but it's not a waste of time. And I think there are different amounts of warm up that you have to do. I don't think it's as static as what it probably is in most people's mind of like, I do the exact same warm up every time. I do not. I vary it quite a bit based off of a few different signals that my body's giving me.
I do the same warm up for my gym lifts, aside from, I was just thinking about this internally, but a recovery upper body day that I need to just have a quick workout, I'll just go in and hit some light upper body stuff and not do my warm up. But pretty much every other time I go to the gym to lift, I do essentially the same warm up. Do you want me to go over it?
Yeah.
So I start with foam rolling. Still don't know the exact science behind that. We talked about it a little bit in, I think, our DOMS episode a couple of episodes ago, but I just have always started with foam rolling. Seems to help my TFL quite a bit, so I always try to focus on that one, and then I'll go straight into usually just kind of like some light hip mobility, so that might just be like some deep squats. The world's greatest stretch is also one of my favorites that I've just incorporated, but aside from those two, that's kind of all I do from mobility. And the world's greatest stretch is a movement, not necessarily a static stretch, so I know you were about to question that one because I called it a stretch, but that's just the name of the movement.
But describe it, because it's a well-known movement.
A half kneeling, I don't know, you might be able to verbalize it better than I can, but kind of a half kneeling movement where you're reaching through your leg and then extending outward.
That was incredibly confusing, the way you just said that.
Yeah, I have no clue how to verbalize what the world's greatest stretch is. Google it.
If you can't find it, we'll put it up there. But it's more of a dynamic movement, called a stretch once again, but it's more of dynamic mobility. You hit the dynamic mobility, and then what happens after that?
And then I'll go into like straight leg raises, bridges, bridge holds. That's usually kind of what I do on the floor. And then I'll get up and I'll move into banded side steps, banded Frankenstein walks. I do single leg balance. And then I'll usually hit like some light calf raises, tib raises, glute activation against the wall. As of recently, I've been integrating calf isometrics. So just a standing single calf raise hold. Do like 4 by 45 seconds on each side. And I'll do usually like 3 to 4 sets of wall sits. And those have been helping my tendons quite a bit. Not only my knee tendons, but my Achilles tendons.
So if we had to break it up into sections, your first section was a little bit of a raise.
Yeah.
Right?
So just like getting the body move, like all of that is a part of the raise, I would say, because we're just generally getting the body moving.
Then you went more into the mobility.
Yeah.
Then you did activation.
Right.
And then you went more potentiation. So you mixed.
I didn't do them in order, but I kind of hit all of those.
And then how do you know you're done? You're ready to go?
Yeah. I've just kind of done some very similar version of that every time, especially for lower body lifts. That generally gets me good to go. And then obviously I'll hit warm-up sets for whatever exercises I'm doing. But that's what my gym weightlifting sessions look like. My gym court sessions look quite a bit different. So I think I do a lot more of the activation. The raise is getting hit quite a bit more there. And then, waking up that central nervous system with the potentiation part is skipping. Skipping is the one that I feel like has given me, it's kind of like my new little cheat code, because if I get some good skips in, I can go from not dunking to dunking in 20 minutes. That's what it took yesterday.
Which is interesting.
Which is usually about a 45-minute warm-up for me to be able to get to dunk. And with how unathletic I've been feeling recently, I was really surprised that I was able to kind of ramp up to that so quickly.
Well, it's kind of nice. You have a test that shows maybe that you were missing an aspect of potentiation to your warm-up.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had talked about at the beginning was the transition from being sedentary, your desk job, to being physically active.
So that's an interesting thing too, is just because of some of the tendon pain I've been having, I've really dropped off all of the plyos that I've had in my gym lift session program. I'm doing jumping at least twice a week anyway, so I feel like it's just extra unnecessary volume right now. But I would go in and try to do some of the high box jumps or jump over this tire. And after a long day at work, it was nearly impossible for me to do those things, as where if I went in on the weekend pretty fresh, I could jump no problem. There was a couple of times jumping over the tire, I just crashed out so hard. And I've got people looking at me you see, okay. I've got people coming to help me up because I failed pretty hard. But other times it's I'm clearing that thing by 4 or 5 inches, no problem.
So there's a variation though.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, the big thing is that there's two spots. Your body, as it gets older, there are actual tissue changes that happen, right? There's actual changes. I believe it's called mechanical thixotropy, but it's where you are actually stiffer in some of your tissues. There's actual changes at a really basic level in your structure that just means it has to be warmed up a bit more. So when you're doing the activity, most of your tissue in your body that we're talking about has viscoelastic properties. So actually, as it warms, it will become looser. That's what viscoelastic will basically respond to some of those activities. That's why you actually are warming it up.
To dumb that down, it's like a rubber band. If a rubber band is cold and you stretch it, it might just snap. But if you warm it up a little bit, it'll usually stretch okay.
You're making everybody afraid of their body. That's great.
All right. I'm afraid of mine.
That's good. The other part that I always think of too is if you've been sitting at a desk all day, there's other mechanical properties, things that creep, where you actually get tissue deformation in your lumbar disc, for example. If you hold in a same position for a period of time, the tissue continues to elongate, and that can also lead to injury and be very uncomfortable. But you can have actual things that happen during the course of the day that make it so that your tissue's not quite as ready to do the activity. So you combine the responsibilities of the day with actual tissue changes that happen with aging. You shouldn't expect that your warm-up is going to look like what your 20-year-old self warm-up looked like. They're going to be different. They should be different. And then the final thing is all of the injuries that you've had in your history, all the things, all the experiences that you've gone through, they've impacted your body, and your warm-up should be including your own personal history, like we talked about with the body inventory. You need to be thinking about what things you've actually had as a problem before. If you didn't do things specific for your back and your calf and your warm-up, or for the tendons, because you've had a predisposition to developing tendinopathies, that would be a large mistake for you.
Don't want to make those mistakes.
No, you don't.
And one of those mistakes that I see everybody in all warm-ups do, can you guess what it is?
Not warming up.
Stretching.
Oh. Well, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't.
I should have gone for it. Yeah, I should have. The stretching one is fascinating. In the future, this will already have happened, but I'm starting that large newsletter again. And so we're kicking our first one out in 2 days, and it's on the topic of stretching for fascia. And so I did a whole nother lib review of, is there anything to me that really changes my mind about the value of stretching? And it's not really changing my mind whatsoever. But there are some interesting things that have come from some studies where stretching have been shown in rat models to reduce inflammation, local inflammation. But the way that you would have to do it and the length of time that you'd have to do it for, no human will ever do it. They were 10 minutes long, and they're basically holding these rats in these positions of stretch. They basically did a chemical irritant to the muscles and tendons and connective tissue in the area, and they showed that these 10-minute long holds. I think it was twice a day for 2 weeks, reduced the local inflammation, which seems pretty, I don't know, man. Some of these things that they do with these animals seem so
some of these folks are
torture.
going to go out there and stretch for 10 minutes straight now.
Dude,
Yeah, just hold that hamstring prep for 10 minutes.
Could you imagine being one of those people who does that to animals? I was reading this thing. I was like, ooh, man, that would be torturing. I don't know. It would be very difficult to do that, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Would you be okay with doing it?
I may be on a rat. I don't know.
That's terrible.
True science.
I love it. It's definitely
science.
not about stretching though, to me. I mean, I think with stretching, that is like only a couple studies have shown that. But to me, if your warm-up is based off stretching, honestly, all I think you're doing is you're giving some input to the body, blocking some signals. You're reducing your ability to actually produce force. You might be inhibiting muscles you don't mean to be inhibiting and overactivating other ones. I think it's the least effective method for warming up. And I'm talking specifically about static stretching. And so if you're saying dynamic stretching, which really is just mobility work, I love it. But that's, to me, is not static stretching. So you don't want to, I do not think static stretching is a useful tool. And if you're feeling super tight, there's probably a reason. You might have an underlying tissue capacity issue that you really need to address, and that changes how you focus your warm up.
With static stretching, have you seen any research that it actually down-regulates the central nervous system?
It does.
Rather than up-regulating it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most strong findings that's found with stretching is that athletic performance gets reduced. They've done it on vertical jump, rep maxes, going for a 1 rep max. Any level of force output is going to be reduced if you do static stretching
power
beforehand.
metrics.
And I don't think that's even controversial. So doing that before you do an activity that may involve full use of your muscle just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that kind of leads into the next little section in terms of using your warm-up as a diagnostic tool. I think that's one that even yesterday was super helpful for me. Is I was kind of determining what effort of jumping I was going to do based on my little warm-up, and my Achilles was feeling good after my isos. After doing some skipping, I wasn't having any knee pain, and those kind of, at least for me, were indicators of like I'm having a good day. In theory, should be able to get some decent jump performance out, which I was able to. There's other times where I haven't listened to those cues and have not been as successful. How do you use your warm-up as a diagnostic tool?
Well, if we go back to topics that me and you have covered before, you can use key signs first to just check to see the state of your body based off of previous injuries that you have or current injuries. The easiest one is always we can drop back on the low back. If your low back is irritated or always feels tight when you start to exercise, you can do active range of motion. So trying to touch your toes, extend your back, lean side to side. And if any of those feel stiff or painful, then you probably want to address that first. I think that's the big difference that I think changes how you approach your warm-up compared to just a standard warm-up is if you start to catch these key signs based off of your previous injury history with your body inventory. If you notice that now all of a sudden I feel terrible or that feels different, you want to normalize that before you move on. That's by far the most important thing, because going into a standard warm-up, your warm-up could actually provoke your symptoms, make you worse. And it could be delayed because now you're doing exercise, which can block pain signals in some people.
You'll feel better for a little bit.
And then afterwards, you'll feel like you jumped off a cliff. That's a huge mistake. And that's one of the biggest ones. If you get one thing out of the episode, in my opinion, is make sure that you're using key signs and make sure that you're using the warm-up to show, hey, my body's actually fully ready for being physically active. And if it's not, you don't push through. And you use the warm-up, you go longer, you get to where your actually body feels good. Because if you get hurt during your workout, it's always gonna be a step backward. Even if it's, you're not hitting the best workout of your life, you're at least not stepping backwards.
I know we talked about a 5-minute warm-up here, but I do think that the timing of warm-up, a lot of people get stressed over that because, as we opened up with, you don't want to spend more time warming up than actually doing your activity. But I struggle to get to a spot where I'm fully warm in less than 20 minutes.
Interesting.
I don't think that you can be as effective as possible with less than a 15 to 20 minute warm-up. And I'm kind of curious what your take is on that for things other than power things. I know a lot of runners. I see a lot of running groups where everybody's standing there doing their quad stretch and their hamstring stretch together. But like, what does an ideal warm-up length look for you?
The mistake with that would be in the ramp, not doing something that's low force on the body, but high warm-up potential. I don't feel like I have a good way to say that. But if, for example, if you're having an issue with getting warm, one of the most useful things would be walking uphill on a treadmill. To max out the incline, it's going to be low force on the body, but you're going to have a huge increase in body temp.
Yeah.
You can also do something like the assault bike, where you have the arms with the bike, low load on the body, but you're going to have a huge response to warming up your body.
And that one's going to even have a higher effect on the nervous system.
Yes, I think those are really, really useful. The unfortunate thing is those can be environment specific. If you're out running,
if you have them available to you,
that's what you're going to do. I really like to then, if I'm thinking through things that I'm going to do, if I'm about to go for a jog, for example, the beginning of the jog, I'd rather have it uphill to start with than going downhill. That would be a bad decision, would be to start your run going downhill, because it's exact opposite. It's not going to warm your body up as much, and you're going to have more force that you're having to deal with. So I like to really think through, is there a way for me to warm it up without it being related to increased force? If I was at a park and I'm going to go for a run, I may do things like step ups on the bench and warm it up by going up and down there instead of running.
Activation, that'll hit a little bit of potentiation, that'll hit a lot of different things. And I think those are the two that usually get missed in most people's warm-ups. They're looking to raise their heart rate and body temp, and then they think that they're good to go, but you're not activating your muscles and turning on the nervous system.
But if you do, for example, if you did 5 minutes on the assault bike, you'll cut down. It would never take you 45 minutes to feel warmed up.
Right.
You'll be able to cut it down to maybe 15 minutes. Because if that's the biggest issue, is you just don't feel warm, your body's showing you that there's something, you need something that's actually going to elevate your heart rate and increase your core temperature. It'll absolutely do that.
And that's where the skipping, at least for me, as a jumping athlete, that one kind of puts all of those things together really well for me. I have to do a little bit to get to the point where I can
you can skip.
Skip.
Yeah, so that would kind of show you your order might be activate. You're probably gonna do your key signs, your screens, make sure that everything feels good. Then you go into your activation, you get your mobility. Then you might hit the increase in your body temp, core temp, and throw in like the skips, and then go back into doing some of the patterning. So the order might change, and I would suggest strongly the order changes if you're gonna be doing something like skipping. But that's a big difference. So you would expect to feel a little bit worse during your first two components of activation and the mobility work, but then you need to make sure you stay long enough in that last part to really get your heart rate up.
And to use your system, that's kind of switching from like the rehab standard into the performance standard via your warm-up.
You want to know if the focus of the workout is going to be rehab standard or performance standard. And if it's rehab standard, it means that we're really focused on the tissues having a good response. So your warm-up might be the entire focus of your whole session, because you're trying to make sure that your body feels good that day. And there's certain times where it's appropriate to stay in this mode of just getting everything feeling good, and then leaving the workout, not even doing hard reps that day, because you just want to make sure you actually feel good.
Yeah, and that's keeping your pain at a zero. I mean, I think if you're in pain during your warm-up, that's going to be a big key sign of how effective you're going to be in whatever comes after your warm-up. So just getting yourself to as close to a zero, if not a zero, during your warm-up is really, that's on the pain scale, obviously, is really important.
Oh my God, makes such a big difference. But if you focus on it like that, if you understand the purpose of each point, for example, you've learned that skipping's a huge piece of it, you would not use the ramp acronym. You would not start with the R, because if you went to raise right off the beginning, you could have a large negative response, and that would be such a mistake. Whereas if you were, I think back to when I was in high school and we would do warm-ups, we would totally do skipping in warm-ups. We would do high knees, butt kicks, and that'd be the very first thing we would do. And then we would sit down and stretch, and then we'd go jog.
Yeah.
And then we would go and do our workouts.
And you've like taken yourself backwards a step.
Yeah. So you've literally
first half of that.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense. So you shouldn't feel locked in. You should actually pay attention to how your body feels. Once again, the key sign is so useful. Yeah. You can check that literally over and over again throughout your warm up, and making sure that it goes negative. So if you start and you notice your key sign, doesn't mean you can't work out, but the focus of the warm up should be to reduce it. And so for you, for example, your key sign might actually be the skipping. You'll know that you're ready to go when skipping feels fantastic.
Good. Yeah.
And you might be peppering the skipping actually multiple times throughout your warm-up.
I guess my warm-up, at least at the gym, does feel like an actual ramp up where everything is kind of building upon each other. Like the foam rolling is just making me start off with feeling good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I move into some mobility. And if I'm noticing that mobility isn't feeling good, maybe I'll foam roll a little bit more before I get into some of my leg raises and activation things. And then if my side steps aren't feeling good, maybe I need to do a couple of isos really quickly to make my tendons feel good. So it's all kind of building upon each other to get yourself into that fully warmed up.
So even when you said that your warm up is the same, you have audibles within it that can magnify and improve the overall effect of the warm up, which is just where you eventually want to get to.
Yeah, because you just don't want to make it worse before you even get into your activity.
That makes no sense. That's probably the one that I run into the most with runners, is that they'll typically warm up running wise by doing things that make the first quarter of a mile to mile horrible, or they'll say, I don't feel good running until 2 or 3 miles in. And that's bonkers, because that's literally, you're warming up for that activity and you're using an activity that could easily hurt your body or make you feel worse. You're using it as an aspect of warming it up. I think that's a mistake.
Because that's basically just going straight into kind of activation and potentiation.
Yeah. I mean, that one, you're actually just skipping those two. You're just going into it. Yeah. You're just going into potentiation. I would not do it that way. And
definitely don't do ramp just fully backwards. Though.
No. Well, for runners, it's kind of interesting. The way I always think of it is, because most running injuries happen during force absorption, my main focus for a warm-up for a runner is always going to be target the force absorbers. Make sure that you're activating the muscles you want to and you're inhibiting the muscles you want to turn off.
How do you do that?
So if I was going to do side steps, for example, the muscle we want to target would be your glute medius. So you'd want to feel it like in your back pocket when you're doing the side steps. Where you'll typically feel it, if you have muscles that are too active, where you want to turn them down, called inhibition, you'll feel it in the front of your hip or in your quads. Yeah. And if you feel it in either one of those places, that's not the muscle we're trying to target. So you want to do something to shut the quad down and something to shut the TFL off. You can do the ball, you can do soft tissue massage. That's the easiest one. Then you follow it back up with an exercise that targets it like a clamshell. You can target the glute med without feeling it in the front of your hip, and then do the side steps. And if you combine into those types of methods, you can actually make sure that every muscle you want turned on, and the way that you're going to pattern it together is all working well together that way. But you have to know where and how to feel, where you want it to actually feel it.
Your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's critically important.
It's definitely not mindless.
I know we had talked at the very beginning about kind of like the 5-minute professional warm up. What are your kind of, you showed up late to your rec league basketball game. Like
you have to get out there.
Yeah.
You have to play in this rec league basketball game that's not a championship. It's just a standard Saturday game.
Tuesday night league.
Yes, got it. Okay. Number one, if you're injured, you always check a key sign and you make sure that the key sign's under control.
You would probably suggest, if you've got 5 minutes, go traction your back for 5 minutes.
That would be the whole time, because you always want to hit the thing that's going to be the biggest issue for you during the activity. And so if you come in, I don't care about increasing your core temp. If you can't lean forward or lean back without pretty significant pain, it's a huge mistake to think that everything else matters. The only thing that really matters is making sure that your back makes it through this activity. So you want to make sure you treat the biggest limiter for you being successful in the activity you're about to do.
Well, and even for myself, there's sometimes where I've got to jump into a game or something like that I don't necessarily need to be in there, but I'm not going to go 100%. I mean, I might look like I'm just half-assing it, but I am. I'm going in there doing 30% jumps and swinging at 30%. And people are like, you suck. I'm like, no, I'm just, give me 15 minutes and I'll be at 100%. But
yeah, I'm just too old.
Yeah,
I can't just do it.
To take it easy, because I know that if I don't, then my rubber bands in all of my different joints are going to snap, and I can't have that.
There's so much information now acting like that you can totally reverse aging. I don't think that's true, but your game plan can make it so that you can be just as successful. There's just some small tweaks to it. If your biggest limiter is you're actively injured, that has to be your top priority. But then after that, it's getting sure that you have some level of temperature warm up, small amount, and then you go right into the activation of the most important muscles for the activity. So I always think if it's a force absorption activity, you increase your core temp, and then you make sure that you can target your quads, your glutes, your pretibials, and your caps. You get those things going, that'd be the number one thing. Now, said it's more of a upper body activity. Well, then it's going to be more shoulder stabilizers, your muscles that help to stabilize your glenohumeral joint, your shoulder joint.
Yeah, iso push-ups. There's lots of simple things you can do without any equipment at all to get your body feeling as good as possible in a short amount of time.
And then once you're in the activity, make sure you're monitoring how your body feels. And then if you have to, you stop and you You do more.
But most of us are adults here, so plan ahead and don't get yourself in the need for a 5-minute warm-up situation.
Yeah, I love that. The request for a 5-minute warm-up is always interesting because it depends. Sometimes a 5-minute warm-up is so insufficient that if you can only do that 5-minute warm-up, you shouldn't do the activity that day.
Right.
I mean, and you need to understand that, because if you're on the rehab standard, you have the opportunity to make yourself dramatically worse.
Yeah, and that's why I pointed out, like, if you are going to do the activity, like, take it easy. Don't go all out 110% in those first few minutes. Like, let your body work into it, and you will kind of hit all of ramp, depending on what the activity is, in 15 or 20 minutes of doing the activity, but it's definitely not priming you for your highest potential
for success.
Yeah. Anything else to hit on the warm-up? I feel like that was a good little comprehensive take on the warm-up.
Like it.
If you're feeling like a car in the winter and are trying to start up by pushing your bumper, not going to work.
It ruins your bumper.
And if we want to go back to the rubber band analogy, don't snap. Be flexible, just not through static stretching.
Just not through static stretching.
Alrighty.
PYB, baby.
Peace.